So what is the only thing that is more dangerous than a grenade? More of them, of course, and the best way to deliver them, as we've discovered, is the grenade rifle. So how do we apply more grenades at a distance? The simple solution is the grenade launcher. So count explosives carefully, because this is Barron's New Vegas gun guide, and this is all about the powerful and exceedingly rare China Lake launcher. Very rare even compared to the homemade and handmade firearms, the China Lake, or NATIC, is a pump-action grenade launcher that was produced right after the Niblick trial settled on the 40mm grenade and the M79, but this one was produced by the Navy at the behest of the Navy SEALs. Named after the Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake facility and designed by Alfred F. Kermode in 1967, the grenade launcher, or the China Lake, was something that seemed to be a light year ahead of the M79. In fact, it was only finally given up by the US military in 2009 when the Miglor MGL revolving grenade launcher was adopted instead of modernizing the China Lake. While it was based on shotgun mechanics, still, the China Lake can fit 3 grenades in the tube and 1 in the chamber, and with practice, Navy SEALs could launch all 4 grenades accurately before the first one even landed. With this amount of firepower, it was well loved by those crazy men of the Navy SEALs, and was used in their full extent in Vietnam. Best with the standard high explosive or frag rounds, the China Lake was able to make use of any other 40mm grenade type due to the use of the manual pump action to cycle the round. A key feature of almost every other 40mm launcher is opening the breech to reload, but because there's no blowback being used, it allowed the China Lake to be made of lighter materials that are normally unsuited for firearms. Namely, this was aluminum, which allowed the China Lake to weigh only 8 pounds, and carrying a total of 2 pounds of grenades, it was only 3 pounds heavier than the M79, meaning it was still easy enough to carry for the SEALs. Of the ammo that could be carried, the 40mm there was the incendiary and air bursts for offense, and a variety of signal flares and smoke grenades for other tactical applications, all made possible by the lower pressure applied to the warhead as opposed to a traditional bullet. Now, in terms of rarity, the China Lake, as alluded to before, is almost a unique oddity. True numbers made for those trials are not even known with certainty due to the fact that it was not officially adopted and made solely for the Navy SEALs, so there was only a handful. Now, at most, 50 chassis were made, and the Navy claims 22 completed guns in their records. However, nowadays, all but 3 have been demilitarized, and without surprise, the Navy has those 3. Now, as far as the Wasteland is concerned, this is the first multi-shot grenade launcher in a Fallout game, with only an unused drum-fed launcher planned for Fallout Tactics, which also had the M79 as a way to lob the extremely rare 40mm grenades. Now, the one in New Vegas does seem to be the attempted reproduction, as is loaded with 4 grenades before the Courier pumps the last one into the chamber, which follows the ones made in 2009, which would be the ones the Boomers would have or that the Gunrunners would reproduce. And now on to damage, which there is a strange difference between the rifle and the launcher. The launcher does an impressive 30 damage on impact compared to the rifle's 2, but they both do the same amount of explosive damage at 100. This does mean that the grenades physically hit like a 5.56 from that gun, a definite point in its favor. With the same explosion radius, as far as I'm aware, of 750 units, but with a lower muzzle velocity, it is more dangerous than the rifle to the user, as again, there is no minimum arming distance for the grenade. It has a terribly slow rate of fire at 0.6 shots per second, which means it must be pretty rusty, and it has the same spread as the rifle of 1, which means a missed shot going less far can be very dangerous and potentially hit the user unexpectedly. So it appears that VATS really is the best way to use the grenade launcher. It costs the same 35 AP, but the added damage means the efficiency is 3.71 damage per AP. And while the DPS with the first 4 is very low at 72.7, but the magazine of 4 and reload of 0.5 per shell does mean its sustained DPS is only slightly lower at 57.4. But if a fight drags on, it only means the danger is usually getting closer, and that means the danger to yourself is increasing. Now again, the ranging sights lack adjustments or a reference point, so with iron sights, it's more of a very nice guess. Because it utilizes the very complicated mechanical action of pumping, the grenade launcher requires 75 explosive to use effectively and a strength requirement of 5 to use this 12-weight weapon. Now this is the end of all lightweight explosive weapons from this point forward, as they will only get heavier. This means that unlike the rifle, it is unlikely that most people will carry it around unless they took the heavyweight perk, which is definitely needed for an explosives heavy playthrough. Now price-wise, this is also the start of the spendy explosive weapons, and it is more expensive than the missile launcher as it costs 4,200 caps. And unlike other explosives, the grenade launcher can only be bought or taken from the corpse of, say, a boomer, which for most playthroughs might nullify the boomer's cooperation. Luckily, there are no mods for it, but if they were to exist, they would only balloon the price. Now with the same 495 shots as the rifle, each shot costs just over 8 caps in condition cost and can only be repaired with grenade launchers or repair kits or repairing merchants. It is a very expensive way to launch these grenades given the fact that the grenade rifle is so cheap. Now the ammo is the exact same 40 by 46mm grenades, which were famed for versatility, but in the game they're very limited to the standard explosive or incendiary rounds. Not that smoke would do much. At 12 caps for the standard round, they are cheaper than dynamite and they are cheaper than frag grenades by a long way. The incendiary grenade costs 18 caps per round. It deals the 75% of full damage, but does 6 incendiary damage per second for 15 seconds, meaning it does 90 damage in fire after the 75 damage. The biggest disadvantage, however, is the 40% reduction in blast radius from 750 to 450 units. However, because the grenade launcher has a lower muzzle velocity, these can actually be safer for the user than the normal standard high explosives. Now once you have the grenade launcher, it's probably better to use explosives if you're going to fight things like super mutants or potentially deathclaws, as long as you can get from an advantageous position. If you're fighting humans on the ground, you should probably stick to incendiary. Acquiring a grenade launcher might be the most difficult part, however, as you need to make it to the other side of the map to Nellis to either kill or buy it from the boomers, or you can hope that the arms merchant at 188 might have one, or you could rely on the good graces of Daniel and McCarran or Blake with the Crimson Caravan. And Daniel will need to have his unmarked quest completed to have it in his larger stock. Either way, there are no world spawns for this weapon and no normal enemy carries them. In fact, most people will probably get one at the start of Honest Hearts, when the caravan guard who carries one dies. As for the ammo, it is still best bought from the Red Rock Armorer or the Quartermaster at the Hoover Dam, but low quantities of 40mm grenades can be found all over the place. And in conclusion, the grenade launcher's slow rate of fire and reloading one by one makes it far less useful as it might first seem, and the weight and cost make it prohibitive to carry, but it is a fantastically beautiful and still simple grenade launcher with Rarity on its sides for both sides of the Great War. The biggest determination is that it takes nearly 7 seconds to shoot all 4 grenades, which even without rapid reload means the grenade launcher is almost on its 4th grenade in the same amount of time. And with the rapid reload perk, the grenade rifle can shoot 4 grenades with 1 being reloaded before the grenade launcher is starting its reload, and it can shoot from much further away. Coupled with the other practical factors, there isn't much utility as it might first seem. While it does make my list of weapons you should have, it is only really to admire or when you haven't found the weapon from the next video.